Howdy. I recently started this collab channel with Rookie and decided this was the first video I wanted to make for it. A tier list. This game is pretty new, just coming out in alpha, but I honestly think it's really fun. I've wanted a Sonic tower defense game for a long while now, and while there may have been a few others that were made in the past, they were never really popular enough to catch anyone's attention. This one caught my attention though. For it being an alpha, its models and animations are very nice. That paired with a fun dev team has me absolutely hooked on this game. Anyways, enough rambling, let's get on with the video. Let's start with the only two uncommons in the game, Sonic and Classic Sonic. These two are literally the same tower. They do the same damage, have the same cooldown, and have the same range. The only difference between the two is their model. Their low damage makes them among some of the worst towers in the game. Sure, their price is low, but their placement limit is 8, meaning they end up costing a lot to get to their full potential, making them not worth it. There are just other starters that are a lot better. But credit where credit is due, they can beat Game 1 Act 1 on Chaos Mode with just them. Still E tier though. Moving on to the rares, I'll start with Amy. For how easy she is to get and how cheap she is, I'd say she's one of the best starters. Top 3 bare minimum. And cost efficiency wise, easily the best starter there is. Her damage and range isn't amazing, but it's not bad by no means. Her cheap price paired with the fact she does splash AoE makes her an amazing starter. If you're just starting out, then please use her when you get her from the basic banner. A tier. Onto Snowballer Amy. I won't say she's terrible, but I definitely won't call her good. Slow in general isn't a very good thing in this game at the moment. She only slows by 20% and her attack is single target. Not to mention her damage kinda sucks. I honestly don't think she's worth using at all. D tier. Skelenik. This unit is literally Sonic with higher damage, lower range, lower placement limit, and costs more. Sure, on paper he sounds better than Sonic, but he just isn't. The higher cost, lower placement limit, and lower range makes him worse in practice. E tier. Moving up to the epic rarity, Classic Tails. I'll be honest, he's the best out of all the epics. He's a slower, but unlike the last slower I spoke about, this one is a splash. That and he actually doesn't do half bad damage. With a good range stat, he slows by 30%, putting him among one of the best slowers in the game. While slow isn't the best thing in this game, this unit does help you early on. He's honestly not a bad support pick when you're starting out. B tier. Snow Brawler Knuckles. Oh boy, what a unit. He does decent damage, almost identical to Knuckles, but like Knuckles, he has pretty low range. His whole gimmick is he's supposed to have knockback with his attacks, but honestly, I can't even notice any enemies taking knockback when I use him. Maybe he's decent with telekinesis, but I just can't be bothered when there's a flat out cheaper, better option that I'll mention when I get to it. D tier. Ghost Chow. I can confidently say that this is the second worst support in the game. A 1.2 times damage boost just doesn't help nearly as much as you think it would. I won't say it's bad though, just incredibly mid compared to the other support options. C tier. Knuckles. This is that better option I was talking about when I was rambling about Snowbrawler Knuckles. Knuckles is cheaper, does pretty much the same damage, and does an actual stun instead of some knockback gimmick. Sure, it can vary, lasting from 0.5 seconds to 0.8 seconds, but it still leaks better than what Snowbrawler has going for it. B tier. Tails. A single target sniper, with quotes because his range isn't actually all that great, that doesn't really pack much of a punch. His main selling point is his range, but it's just not big enough for him to be viable in any way. His classic counterpart actually has more range than he does. You know, the unit with one of the best slows in the game. He's not good, but I won't say he's that bad. His DPS did surprise me though. B tier. Up in the legendary rarity, we're finally getting into some pretty good units, starting with Cream and Cheese. I'd argue this is the best consistent support in the game. She's cheap for support, comes with no downsides, unlike a certain other unit I dislike, and doesn't have any downtime. Easily A tier, but I can see an argument for her to be in S tier. Rouge the Witch. This is one of the starters I think is top 3. She has pretty much everything you'd want in a starter. Cheap prices, fairly large range, splash damage, good damage over time. There's only really one problem with her, and that's she is so bad without her upgrades. You are forced to place her and upgrade her rather than placing multiple down before upgrading. Other than this one flaw, I think she is fantastic. S tier. Snowboarder Silver. Good damage, not too expensive, good cooldown, he is a splash unit, and his passive more than makes up for his subpar range. I honestly have nothing bad to say about this unit. For his rarity, he is very good. A tier, Gingerbread House. I'd say this is the best summoner in the game. The only other summoner summons very slowly and just isn't nearly as consistent as this unit. The only problem is you have to spam its ability if you want to get the best value out of it. A tier, Engineer Tails. This is one of the two units I think have an absolutely beautiful design, but I'll try not to be biased. This unit and Rouge the Witch fight for the best starter crown in my opinion. While Rouge the Witch excels in damage over time and splash, Engineer Tails excels in single target damage. Currently, there's a bug where the turrets he places are affected by whatever trait he has, making them very, very strong. With that being said, do not get Master Plane on him. It doesn't help, for now. However, with all of that being said, he does have one glaring issue. He requires quite a bit of time to get set up. He takes forever to get his turrets up until his last upgrade, and it's sort of expensive. As you can see in the footage, even with the extra money from my farming unit, he can't even beat this stage alone. A tier, Chili Dog Stand. I won't lie, this unit is pretty bad. You don't really need the extra money, and most of the time it just ends up wasting a slot in your hotbar. I'd recommend never using this unit. E tier. Now moving up to Mythical, Pumpman. I think Pumpman is absolutely amazing. He can switch between his attacks, applying burn, poison, stun, and slow at any time you want. His burn and slow are nothing to write home about, but his stun and poison are where he really shines. Most, if not all, stunners are single target, while Pumpman has a splash attack. Not to mention his stun is one of the best in the game, and his poison damage is honestly kind of insane for his price. Easily, without a doubt in my mind, I put him in S tier, Ruth. Ruth is basically the best starter on events, mostly because the enemies start with fairly high health. Ruth does a pretty large amount of damage, but has a high cooldown. She does, however, have a cone AoE attack, and an ability that will hit one enemy, doing a little damage and applying some knockback to them. She has a placement limit of 1 and is sort of expensive for what she gives, and she's such a pain to get. I'd honestly just use a different starter, she's not worth the hassle. A tier, Frost Queen Blaze. I, for one, love her. She has pretty high damage, high range, her attack pierces, and she has a very, very good ability. Her ability is a massive AoE attack that hits everything in her range for 30% of this unit's damage every second and applies 20% slowness to everything for a couple seconds. This ability also applies 25% frostbite to everything she hits. She's solid for pretty much every situation. S tier, Amy the Bat. This is the other unit that I think has a beautiful design. Good job, concept artists and modelers, really. Amy the Bat is an interesting tower, but I'd mostly call her a support tower. She has one of the highest damage per second in the game, but only for a few seconds when using her ability. Outside of her ability, she's a little useless. She has a single target attack that deals bleed damage, but it honestly doesn't do all that much. Her ability makes her more than worth using though. A tier, Eggman. This is the other summoner I was talking about when speaking of Gingerbread House. Eggman's summons are very strong, sure, but they have such a long cooldown. And Eggman himself has very low damage, meaning his summons are really the only good part about him. He can switch between 3 summons and has 2 summon slots each, giving you 4 slots because he has a placement limit of 2. However, one of his summons are flat out useless compared to the others. Motobug is very good, getting up to 1.2 thousand HP, but usually there are enemies that throw out decoys that eat its health, or even enemies that attack it and eat even more of its health, making it useless in some situations. Buzz Bomber is, in my opinion, the best summon Eggman has. It has decent range and it applies burn with its attacks. B tier. Just use Gingerbread House if you want a summoner. Finally, onto the last rarity in this game, Unleashed, Festive Lord X. He's a very good starter and, at the time of this recording, you get him at the very start of the game. He's cheap, has a splash attack, randomly applies an effect with every attack, has a chance to stun with every attack, and does pretty good damage. He's also the only unit we're going to get to keep, with the only exception being the 3 people who win the community event once Alpha ends. A tier, Metal Sonic. My favorite Sonic character, and it's not even close. Metal Sonic is the only continuous attacker that isn't an admin unit. His only real drawback is that he has a startup time when he starts attacking. He still does amazing damage and even applies burn with the lowest tick speed burn in the game, and his attacks even pierce. S tier without a doubt. Biggie Claws. Oh my god, Biggie Claws. What can't this unit do? I'd say he's one of, if not the best unit in the game. He's full AoE, he applies good knockback, he'll farm you money, he buffs units around him, and he even has a summon that does pretty high damage plus burn. His only real drawback is his small range, but his summon more than makes up for that. S tier, Cursed Puppeteer Cream. Look, she has a really cool design and I love it, but she is by far the worst unleashed. Her damage is negligible because of her very high cooldown and the fact that she's single target. The buff she gives is nullified by the fact that it nerfs everyone's range by 15%. Most towers in this game don't have much range, so it's not worth it. Her passive, making pretty much all enemies in her range take 5% poison damage and 10% slowness, isn't even noticeable. The damage is so little that at best it's chip damage, and you can't even see the slow because of how little it affects the enemies. D tier. Just use cream and cheese if you need a buffer, for the love of God. I'd like to personally thank EST. They actually gave me Metal Sonic and Ruth because I was having such a hard time getting them. My luck was not treating me well. Seriously, thank you EST.